So why not call it First War of Indian Independence? Hmm?
That's it, sir. I mean,
Okay.
okay.
So Prashant, may I know your view? You're also a history student. Quickly, Prashant.
I mean, sir, I think there is nothing of nation interest in that war, sir. Uh, all the kingdoms that came together to protect their kingdoms.
Hmm. So there was no nationalism there.
Nationalism in the sense,
What is nationalism?
love towards the country.
Love towards the country? No. Nationalism, nation comes from natio, which is oneness, a feeling of oneness. India, according to R.C. Majumdar, was a singular entity because people talked about the Ramayana, Mahabharata, what am I typing? Mahabharata and all of the across the length and breadth of it. Okay, so he says it is the first war of Indian independence. See, there was nationalism that doesn't exist in one type. Okay, nationalism exists in different ways. One of the kinds of nationalism is cultural nationalism. India had a cultural nationalism by 1857. Okay, cultural nationalism in the sense that people of the country had a shared culture, right from the top to the bottom, east, now going into what is Pakistan, Bangladesh, and west up to Baluchistan. People had one culture. Okay, so there was cultural nationalism, but what was missing in the nationalism in 1857 was political nationalism. Political nationalism is when you believe that you are one political entity, which was not there in the revolt, the Great Revolt of 1857. It was fought under one unified leadership of the Mughal emperor, who at that time happened to be Bahadur Shah Zafar the second. But people fought independently for themselves. The Peshwas fought for themselves. As somebody pointed out, Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi fought for her own kingdom so that Dalhousie's Lord Dalhousie's doctrine of lapse won't get applied to it. and Tantia Tope fought for it, fought for his kingdom. So there are all these different people who fought for their own reasons. So usually you will say that no system of knowledge, and especially social sciences, cannot deal with conjecture. What would have happened had something happened, or had something not happened? Social sciences are not equipped to deal with that. Even though, having said this, I'll say Irfan Habib does exactly this when he says that had the Mughal Empire flourished for some more time, India would have developed its own indigenous form of capitalism. This is what Irfan Habib talks about. Okay, but if you're looking at the idea of what would have happened, and one doesn't know, Irfan Habib says it. Would it have developed? I don't know. I don't see the things that he saw. Okay. Uh, but if you look at the result of what might have happened had the revolt succeeded, would we have had an India? I doubt very much, because people who were fighting, they were fighting essentially for the sake of uh, maintaining their own uh, kingdoms. So they would have reverted back to those 520 odd kingdoms that existed then. That is a logical deduction, okay? Because there was no establishment of one political Indian identity. This happened only with the intervention of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and it was Gandhi's intervention that built political nationalism in the 20th century. Okay, in fact, when we talk nationalism, and especially when we talk about Indian nationalism, I'll talk about this at a bit of length. But Rajni Kothari argues that, the delays that happened in Indian nationalism, for which Gandhi is blamed, actually were not a bad thing. They were a good thing because it helped in the consolidation of the nationalism of the variety that we now see in our country. And whether you like it or not, you have to agree that our nationalism is very strong. Don't go by the utterances of politicians. Okay? Please do not go by the utterances of politicians or NRIs who send terrible, horrible, what should I say, messages about India uh, and the people of the country. The NRIs somehow think that they are now great people, which is a load of, pardon my language, bullshit. These fellows should be asked to shut up and live in whichever country they are and not talk about India. Okay, but Indian nationalism is a very, very strongly rooted nationalism. This was demonstrated at the time of the emergency in 1977, and it has been proving itself again and again, many number of times. Many times people have tried to fracture the nations, the nationalism among the people on different lines. Some of them will be there. Some of them will be there who will fall for that. But otherwise, the nationalism has not been fractured at all. Okay. And the fact that so many diverse cultures live as one, and there has been cross pollination of cultures, and that has consolidated into one Indian identity, is something that tells you that Indian nationalism is extremely strong. When you ask an Indian, what are you? He will say, I'm an Indian. Okay. He will not say, like they say in Switzerland, I'm a German Swiss, or I'm a French Swiss, or I am English Swiss. They won't say that. In Spain, people will say we are Basque, we are Catalan, we are Valencian. In India, people say, I'm an Indian. Nobody says these other things, other minor things. Nobody says, I'm a Hindu Indian, I'm a Muslim Indian, I'm a Bihari Indian, I'm a Telangana Indian. No, nobody says that. So please remember, the political nationalism and the credit should go entirely to Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. No one else. He's a colossus. The defamation that is happening in the country to his name, and to the consolidation that happened after Gandhi in the hands of Nehru. Nehru was the other nation builder. If there is the idea of political nationalism being built by Gandhi, then you have the consolidation and the building of a political nation called India, an independent political nation called India. That credit goes to Nehru. Let nobody fool you into believing that this is wrong. Okay. So anyway, so much for a detour. Okay. So the realm of commons was something that went into the hands of the knights. Okay. The realm of commons wealth went into the hands of the knights. So they decided to sit separately. And I told you, in 1341 CE, the knights sat in another chamber and refused to sit with the lords, the peers, uh, and therefore you have bicameralism. Okay, in England. So it has nothing to do with people planning and saying, oh, we are a big country, we should have two houses of the parliament, or we are a small country, so unicameralism is fine. Uh, we should, we can sit uh, without, uh, you know, without dividing ourselves into two. No, most of the things that have happened in history have happened due to historical necessities. So one should study all these developments historically as ideas that evolved due to historical necessities. That is the reason why the Gulbenkian Committee, which was headed by Immanuel Wallerstein, said that the mother, yes, sir, Prashant,
Sir, doubt.
ask.
The knight sat in separate chamber because they don't want to sit with lords, or lords don't want them to sit with knights. So knights went to another chamber.
The lords said we are superior to you, okay? Because they said by birth we are blue blooded, all right? So that was their argument. The knights said, rubbish, let's not sit with these people because what are they? They are by birth. Will anyone today accept that Mukesh Ambani's son is a genius because he's born to a rich man? You won't accept, will you?
No, sir.
No, that's it. So the knight said, what if you are born great, if you are born as nobles? What, there's no achievement on your part. Whereas we, the knights, have been knighted because of our bravery. Okay, we have shown our loyalty. The word they used was fealty, Fealty, which basically means loyalty. They said, we have shown our fealty to the king. We have shown our bravery fighting for the king to protect his lands, to protect the commons, the realm of the commons. So we have shown valor. Therefore, we are better off. We are the ones who are better than you because our acts speak for themselves. Whereas what did you do? You didn't do anything. You relied on us to protect the country whenever there was a war. So therefore, they sat separately, the knights. But that is not because they accepted the argument of the lords that they were blue-blooded. No, they said, we are better than you. We are much, much better than you. Okay. And therefore, they said, we will not sit with you. We will sit separately. And at that time, there was no upper house and lower house. Okay. There was no upper house and lower house. That kind of a thing happened with, I'm jumping a bit because I'll only now deal with those kind of histories, that kind of history that we require to know about the evolution of the parliament. When the Lancastrian dynasty was in power, in the 15th century, you will find that when the Lancastrian dynasty was in power in the 15th century, at that particular time, the Lancastrians were a weak dynasty. They relied on the parliament for advice. Okay, they relied on the parliament for advice, because I told you that the Magna Carta also had clauses which said that the parliament could be consulted, should be consulted in governance as well. And because of that, there was an ascendancy in the powers of the parliament. There was an ascendancy in the powers of the parliament during the rule of the Lancastrians. Okay, and the Lancastrians being weak, they consulted the lords. Okay, they didn't consult the knights, because for them the knights were those who represented, uh, you know, they were more like the servants of the king. That's how they saw the whole thing. Okay, so they consulted the lords, and this was used by the lords to play a game of one-upmanship, but yet they had not become the upper house, not during the time of the Lancastrians. Now, after the Lancastrian dynasty collapsed in the 16th, 17th centuries, you will find the rise, the 16th century, yeah. In the 15th and 16th centuries, you find the rise of the Tudors. Okay, the Tudor dynasty. Now, the Tudor kings were extremely powerful, and they cut the parliament to size, and therefore the confrontation between king and parliament began. This started during the time of the Tudor dynasty. Okay, the Tudors were powerful kings, so they didn't think that they needed the advice of the parliament. So what they did, in effect, is that they sidelined the parliament. But in the Lancastrian period, the parliament had got used to a few powers, and it was something that it was not willing to let go. These powers that it had, it wasn't willing to let go. So what it did therefore was it started confronting the kings. Okay, so some kind of confrontation between the kings and the parliament started. And at this particular time, what happened is that the kings refused to listen to the parliament, and they wanted to establish their absolute supremacy. They wanted to establish the absolute supremacy. Okay, and Therefore, you will find that the parliament again is on a back foot. It goes onto its back foot, doesn't have powers, it's not even consulted. Okay, but there was one thing that happened which changed the history of the parliament. One event followed by a few other events. So what is that one event? The one event was the death of Tudor King Henry the Seventh. Okay, the death of King Henry the Seventh changed a lot of things. How did it change? What did it change? Well, the first thing that happened was that following his death, and King Henry the Seventh didn't have any children, so his younger brother, Henry the Eighth, became king. Okay, now came the problem. The problem is, according to the practices of the Tudor dynasty, it was mandatory in this kind of a circumstances for the younger brother to marry the wife of the elder brother who died without heir, H-E-I-R, without heir. Okay, so when he died without heir, then basically what happened is that it fell on Henry the Eighth to marry his brother's wife, who was Catherine of Aragon. Now, Aragon is in Spain even today. Catherine of Aragon was the daughter of the Spanish okay, she was the daughter of the Spanish emperor, who was also the Holy Roman Emperor. Please remember that in the 4th century CE, the Roman Empire, after Marcus Aurelius, it decided to adopt Christianity as its official religion. Though it fought Christianity for centuries, finally it decided to adopt Christianity as the official religion. And so the Roman Empire transformed into the Holy Roman Empire. And the Roman emperor came to be called the Holy Roman Emperor. And he had a big say in the matters of the church, and with the Pope. He had a lot of power, manipulative power with the Pope. Now, in those days, if a king wanted to marry a commoner, then he needed not just a commoner, wanted to marry, that needed absolution from the Pope. So, what do you see? You see that Henry VIII did not want to marry Catherine of Aragon, sorry. That is the Spanish pronunciation, Aragon. He didn't want to marry Catherine of Aragon. He wanted to marry a, another person called Lady Anne Boleyn. There's a wonderful movie on Anne Boleyn, which is called The Anne of a Thousand Days. You'll get, if you can get to see it on YouTube or wherever, see it. It's a fantastically made film, and it tells you quite a bit of British history. Incidentally, I don't know, there are actually on Netflix, but then you'll have to subscribe to that. On Netflix and Prime Video, there are a lot of documentaries, enacted documentaries of history, which have been taken from the History Channel. What they show us as History Channel is rubbish. These ones are the ones that are there on Netflix and on Prime Video. Okay, so if you see those, you will see that uh, Henry wanted to marry this person. She was later called Lady Anne Boleyn. She was a commoner. She was called Anne Boleyn. So he approached the Pope and asked him for permission to marry Anne Boleyn. The Spanish emperor, whose daughter Catherine of Aragon was, immediately objected and told the Pope that under no circumstances will you give permission to Henry VIII to marry Anne Boleyn. He has to marry Catherine of Aragon. So Henry VIII did marry Catherine of Aragon, but yet again made a plea to the Pope saying that she was barren or infertile and therefore she is not able to bear children, and hence he should be allowed to marry Anne Boleyn. And again, the Spanish emperor, the Holy Roman Emperor, intervened in these matters and said, no, there is no way that you will allow this. So the Pope yet again denied permission for the wedding. In the meanwhile, for the church, a catastrophe happened. The catastrophe that happened for the church was the Reformation under Martin Luther. Okay, Martin Luther defied what is called the papal bull. The papal bull, Pope, in fact, is a corruption, English corruption for the Latin il papa, the father. Because if you look at Christianity, there is a trinity in it. The Trinity is the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. These days, thanks to the Americans, they don't use the word ghost, they are saying Holy Spirit. Okay, Father is God, Son is Jesus Christ. I don't know what the Holy Ghost is. Seriously. I'm trying to find out, not able to find out. However much I search, I haven't yet got a hold of authentic information about what the Holy Ghost is and why this Trinity. Okay, so the Pope was called Il Papa. His order was called the Bull, and because it was given by Il Papa, it was the Papal. The Pope summoned him when Luther objected to the sale of indulgences. Okay, now Christianity sees the human being as a sinner. Right from birth, you're a sinner because you carry the sin of Eve, which is called the original sin, which is eating the fruit of the forbidden fruit of the forbidden the tree in heaven. Okay, so if you eat that, then God said the consequences will be disastrous. Eve came under temptation thanks to a snake, which lures it to eat the fruit from the forbidden tree. And when that happens, Adam and Eve fell from heaven or paradise to earth. That is the original sin. So when Christians believe that when you're born with the original sin, and you have to go through baptism. Baptism is washing off the head of a baby, but since Christianity is a proselytizing religion, or a religion that converts people into it, even grown-ups who have taken Christianity as their religion or converted to Christianity, they are also baptized to wash away the original sin of Eve. And every prayer of the Christians begins with, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." Okay, and it was a matter of practice to have this thing called the confession. The confession was where It is still there among the Catholics. The confession is where people went and confessed not just their bad deeds, but also their bad thoughts. Whatever bad thoughts they had, those also they confessed. If they lusted after someone, or if they wanted something which they shouldn't have wanted. So those confessions were done in front of a priest who then secured the pardon of God, okay, and washed you of those sins. So confession was to wash off the sins. And the sale of indulgences was that people could pay money, buy an indulgence, which means that if you bought an indulgence, your sins were washed off. So the clergy became extremely corrupt. They were selling indulgences to people, making money. They were basically, what should I say? They were blackmailing young girls for sexual favors. And when all this was happening, this was the time when Martin Luther decided that the church is not the institution it should be. So he launched a movement called Reformation. And with the Reformation, he he removed the church and the clergy as intermediaries between God and human being. God and human being. He said there is no need to. Who is this person who is securing pardon for you? Is he somebody who descended from heaven? No, he's a person like you and me. Okay, so it was at that time that the Bible, which was in Latin, was translated into various vernacular languages, and the printing press was just invented. So the vernacular Bibles were circulated among people. Okay. Martin Luther said, you read and know for yourself. Where are all these things that these people are talking about? So the Reformation became a very, very powerful movement, and this was the first time the power of the Pope was challenged, and King Henry VIII was an opportunist. That he declared that he was breaking away from the Roman Church and set up the Anglican Church, which till today is the headquarters of the Protestant churches. Who was the head of the Protestant church? It was Henry VIII, who said the King of England will be the head of the Church of England. The Anglican Church is also called the Church of England. The spiritual head is the Archbishop of Canterbury. I don't know if any of you saw the live streaming of the funeral of King Philip, who died almost when he was 100, but didn't get quite there. It's like a batsman in cricket getting out on 99. Sad thing. Yeah. So the Archbishop of Canterbury was in charge of matters which were spiritual, but the other matters, the head of the Anglican Church or the Church of England was the king. Now, for this to happen, King Henry the Eighth took the support of the House of Lords. He took the support of the House of Lords, not the Commons, because the Commons were anyway servants of the king. That's how he saw it. So he took the support of the House of the Lords, and that is how they claimed that they were the upper house. Okay, they claimed that they were the upper house. Now, what we see is that there is once again a rapprochement between king and parliament, and this rapprochement led to more powers to the parliament. Now, unfortunately, King Henry Catherine of Aragon had a daughter called Mary, Anne Boleyn had a daughter called Elizabeth, who went on to become Elizabeth I. The present Elizabeth, King Prince Charles is waiting. When will I become king? If you saw the Lion King, okay, Simba sings, I can't wait to be king. Okay, it's like that. He's waiting and waiting, but this lady is not dying. Anyway, so Elizabeth II seems to be far more powerful than Elizabeth I. When King Henry VIII, incidentally, he married some 7 other women. And after that, when he died, Mary became the Queen of England, and she tried to reconvert the English people to Catholicism. Now, I have to tell you something about Catholic. Somebody quickly tell me what these mean. Catholic, secular. What is my spelling? What's happening? What is Catholic? Anybody? Anyone? Catholic is all encompassing. Okay, so when the Anglican Church was set up by King Henry, the Roman Church decided to call itself the Roman Catholic Church. Catholic because it refused to recognize any other church. It said there's only one church, all-encompassing church, and that is the Roman Church. And therefore it became the Roman Catholic Church. And this Roman Catholic Church was supposed to be the only church. Okay, so a word that had no religious meaning still does not have a religious meaning, by the way. If you read some English writers, by that I mean British writers, they use Catholic to say that, somebody has a Catholic view of life. So what is a Catholic view of life? A Catholic view of life is where you are able to see the big picture, right? It means all encompassing. So the Roman Church, or the St. Peter's Cathedral, as it is called, became the Catholic Church. But Henry refused to budge. The Anglican Church, he called it the St. Paul's Cathedral. And he said this is going to be the headquarters of Protestantism. And he made himself the thing. But you must understand, among Catholics, there are no denominations. There are just Roman Catholics. Okay, among Christians who are Roman Catholics, they're just Roman Catholics. It's among the Protestants that you have so many denominations. You have the Lutherans, you have the Baptists, you have the Methodists. Okay, you have what are I can't remember all those right now, but you have so many denominations. They are in excess of 20 or 25. Okay, so there are so many denominations, and they don't necessarily accept the Anglican Church as the head of the Protestant Church. Okay, so Catholic is all encompassing. Secular, can somebody tell me what is secular? Are we a secular country, Akshay?
Yes, sir.
Why are we secular?
We treat all religions equally.
Mm. Is the USA secular?
Yes, sir.
Why?
It the government of USA does not involve in any religious matters.
So treating all religions equally or not recognizing any religion at all is secular?
Means our way of secularism is different from American or a Western view of secularism.
No, call it American. Western view is wrong, because Germans, I told you, had a Christian Democratic Party. So, yeah, but what does secular mean? Secular also, by the way, means when the word Catholic was taken on by the Catholic Church, secular was taken on by those who did not want in the West, who did not want the involvement of religion in public affairs. Whereas, as Akshay has put it quite correctly, our idea of secular is that we treat all religions as the same. We give them no religion gets priority. That is our definition. Okay, but secular is also still used outside the context of religion and things like that. I don't know. Every year there is this thing that comes out, the Economic Survey of India, which will tell you sectoral growths in various sectors of the economy. Okay, and then in the end it will say the secular growth of the Indian industry can be pegged at 7.8%. That is very optimistic. It'll probably is 4.1% now. Okay, secular is all the sectors put together. So both of them are the same, they mean the same, but one word has been taken by religion and the other by those who didn't want religion in public life. They said, at home you can do whatever you like, but not in public life. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell you. So when the rapprochement between the king and parliament happened, the House of Lords became a little powerful. Okay, and when Henry died, Catherine of Aragon, who had a daughter called Mary, she was the elder daughter. So Mary was the one who became the Queen of England. And she wanted to get rid of the Anglican Church, the Protestant Church, because she was under the influence of her mother and grandfather, who were devout Roman Catholics. And she basically tried to reconvert the whole of England back into Catholicism, back to the Roman Church. The result was that people resisted her, and because of the resistance, she got them slaughtered and got herself the sobriquet Bloody Mary, because she just slaughtered people who refused to obey her. Okay. Do you know of any other Bloody Mary? Prashant?
No,
Hmm.
sir.
Ah, come on. You only told me you had a Bloody Mary once. Hmm? You never had a Bloody Mary, Prashant? Hmm?
No, sir.
No? Okay. A Bloody Mary now is a vodka mixed with tomato juice. It's called a Bloody Mary. Somebody had a sense of humor. Okay. Vodka and tomato juice, Bloody Mary.
That means my answer is correct only, sir.
Okay. Right. So Bloody Mary happened, and immediately the House of Lords and the House of Commons got together for the first time and decided that they should overthrow this woman. Okay, so they overthrew Mary, Queen Mary, and brought in Elizabeth the First as the Elizabeth the First as the Queen of England. And Elizabeth continued to take the support of the parliament, and yet again peace reigned between the parliament and the queen or the monarch. And this period is called the golden period in British history, because it was at this in this period that you had various writers like Geoffrey Chaucer, William Shakespeare, all those people, the poets like Milton came later, but some of the other poets came before. And this period is called the Golden Period. It was peaceful, it had prosperity, it had everything. Now I have a feeling my sugar levels are falling. So I'll stop with this. Queen Elizabeth I, I think, ruled for about 15 years. And when she died, there were no more Tudors. So you had a new dynasty which came in, which is called the Stuarts. The Stuarts replaced the Tudors. And once again, the fight between the parliament and the kings started and culminated in the 17th century glorious revolution, as the British like to call it, of 1688. So the two important kings in the Stuart dynasty that we should know were Charles II and James II. And the Stuart dynasty's rule was broken for a dozen years by the dictatorship, the puritanical dictatorship of Oliver Cromwell. Have you heard of all these people? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
You heard of them, Akshay?
Yes, sir. I did the English literature, sir, in degree.
You did English literature. But you should have studied this in history.
No, sir, in English literature.
Mm. When we did history, we were taught British constitutional history. All these things I am teaching, by the way, from memory. Okay, from the days that when I studied history. And we were taught all this by one great professor, Professor Madhukar Anjan, somebody I can never forget. Amazing professor. And we'll talk about all these people tomorrow.
Okay, sir.
Hopefully we'll finish with the story of the evolution of the parliament tomorrow. We'll have a class tomorrow. Is it okay with you? It's Saturday, but since we didn't have a class yesterday.
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Kavya, you suddenly came on. You have something to say?
No, sir.
Kavya came on because somebody left.
No, I was there from the beginning, sir.
Huh?
I was there from the beginning.
I know you were there, but you appeared here because somebody left. I think Rakesh left. Anyway, so tomorrow 5:30. All
Okay,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
No, sir, I'm right here, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. You're right here.
Yeah.
Now that you've come, Kavya is gone. Okay. All right. Okay, then. So we'll do this tomorrow, Saturday. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. One Mr. Teja, Harish Teja, Harsha Teja. Did you join?
Yes, sir. I have joined from the.
You were. Did you join with iPhone or something? Somebody joined with an iPhone.
Yes, sir. Mine only. iPhone is mine only.
No. Okay.
I have to rename it.
No, it's okay. Fine.
Okay, sir.
All right. Thank you. I'll
Thank you,
see
sir.
you tomorrow, 5:30. I'll put
Okay,
the
sir.
link on. Uh, Harsha, I will add your name to this thing called AVR Institute, okay, on the WhatsApp group. So, Hari Teja, your name is, okay. I will add your name and number to the AVR Institute group. Then please check that AVR Institute on WhatsApp. You'll find the link so that I don't have to put it separately for you. Is that okay?
Sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Right. See you. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.